Considering that there will always be those who try to rob us and make a living through such unfair activities, security has become a major topic. However, the more we work on being safe, the more robbers try to trick us. Today, we take a look at some real robbers who failed miserably. Gate almost becomes a guillotine. It's fair to say this guy had a really simple plan. He grabbed a huge hammer and started smashing it against the store's protective glass. We aren't sure how he thought this would go, but apparently it took some more effort than he expected for the glass to break before he could reach the jewelry behind it. Considering that hammering took a while, the owner had enough time to start lowering the metal protective gate. The robber, however, doesn't want to give up and nearly becomes the victim of the slowest moving guillotine. While these two managed to get some goods out of the deal, they were soon apprehended. A mousetrap for robbers. You know how they say that criminals always return to the scene of the crime? Well, this one was quite literal about it. He had robbed the same store multiple times before the store owner decided it was enough. What the smart man has done is block all the exits, creating a perfect mousetrap for the guy who this time decided to enter through the roof. He even managed to make things worse by letting the door shut behind him, becoming stuck in the narrow space. No matter the amount of struggle and the kicks that he threw against all of the doors, he wasn't able to escape. This panicked state that he got in is how cops found him once they got to the scene. Frying pan for the win. Sometimes you don't have much time to react when there's a robber in your house. Well, this guy decided on a strategy that included grabbing anything that he could find, which happened to be a frying pan. Using it as a heavy weapon, he chased the robber out of his home through his garden and managed to land a few heavy hits before the escapee got to the gate exit and tried to run away. However, he didn't get far, considering there were a couple of officers initiating pursuit right away. Was it worth it? These guys had different strategies for robbery. They used an SUV vehicle to break the wall of an Apple store before one of them got out and started stealing the devices. However, this isn't an easy job, considering they're all connected by cables, and we see that in this short time that they had, he didn't manage to get much of the valuable merchandise into his bag. Meanwhile, we see that his pals are essentially destroying the back of their car and trying to exit the store in the same way they breached the store. Considering that they had to back into it quite a few times and quite forcibly, we could probably guess that the damage done to the car may not even be covered by the value of the devices they managed to steal. Instant karma. Seeing as there was no one to stop him, the guy in the blue shirt decided to go on and kick his way through the glass of the store. His plan was clearly to rob it, and as he was clearing the glass, making sure not to cut himself, he realized that this was too much for him. His attempted robbery doesn't go unpunished, and once he tries to cross the street, a red car throws him on the pavement. The guy is luckily okay with just minor injuries, but the lesson was definitely learned. A biker smashes into a robber. Being in your car and in the middle of the road doesn't make you safe from robbers. The guy in the white car realized this once this robber attempted to pull a bag away from him through the driver's window. All of this was recorded by a biker's camera. He drives his bike and smashes it directly into the robber, who starts running for his dear life. The biker then secures the stolen bag by standing right next to it before it is given back to the owner. A robber drops the ball. This fellow must have had a very simple in-and-out plan. You get into the store, you take out the gun, you wave it around, and leave with all the money. The issue was that as soon as he went for it, his hand slipped and he dropped the gun right in front of the clerk. Besides his confidence, we can see that he also nearly lost his pants on the way out. This is why we have security guards. The man with the mask on that we see is a security guard who was working at a medical clinic when an armed man entered the scene and started firing off warning shots, trying to take control of the situation. However, the security guard must have thought to himself, "Not today." He lunges ferociously towards the armed robber, who must have been surprised by the unbelievable courage of this man, which is why he was caught off guard and thrown to the ground. After some struggle, the guard managed to subdue the man. This is why phones are tied down. Here's another hilarious moment when things didn't go as the robber had planned. This guy is acting as if he is looking at the phones, considering which one to purchase before he picks one up and tries running away with it. And we see the robber was yanked back by one of these security measures. He then almost politely returns the phone to its place before having what must have been a very embarrassing moment when the worker confronts him, delivering the final confirmation that his attempt has failed miserably. A hero dog stops a robber. This woman was walking down the street, carefree, carrying a bag of things she just purchased in a local store. The sketchy-looking guy in the yellow hoodie who's walking behind her clearly has bad intentions, as he is picking up pace and trying to get near the woman. As they pass the stray dog, it seems to sense something is wrong. A moment later, the woman is attacked, and the dog goes straight for the guy's legs, successfully chasing him away. Bank robbers caught after a car chase. Even among other types of robberies, bank robberies are some of the most dangerous events. This one began with a 911 call that was placed in Ohio once an off-duty officer noticed what was happening and called it in. The cops immediately placed themselves on the highway, expecting the escaping robbers to take this road, and they were indeed right. This is how a high-speed pursuit has begun. The escaping bank robbers definitely didn't want to give up, and the chase took quite some time. At one point, they even struck another vehicle, damaging their own heavily, but they still kept going, even as parts of their car were left behind on the street. After nearly 10 minutes of pursuit, the escapees crashed into a vehicle that was waiting at a traffic light. One of them then decides to try escaping on foot and gets caught immediately. The other one keeps driving, and after colliding with the police vehicle, his car gets pushed to the side of the road, where we see the second robber was apprehended. An unexpected aid. When you recognize that this robber is wearing an Optimus Prime mask, you may ask yourself, weren't the Autobots the good guys? Well, this one certainly wasn't, but he definitely planned this robbery in much detail. Besides hiding his face, he seems heavily armed, and he's brought a bag in which the money is to be put. While he has taken into account the security camera, he should have added courageous customers to this list, as one of these walks up to him from behind, carrying a stool and smashing it on his head. After some struggle, this brave bystander manages to push the robber away from the counter, and after a dangerous battle, he pins him down. Strength in numbers. These young people were enjoying their spring break and probably thinking of where to go next when an armed fella ran up to them from a nearby vehicle. We can't be sure what the big idea was, but the reason that this robbery has failed miserably comes from the well-organized and courageous attack that these guys have chosen as their response to being threatened. As one of them grabbed the weapon, the others ran up to the man and managed to throw him on the ground. He even gets quite a beating before another man from the robber's vehicle runs up to provide help. All he manages to do here is push one of the boys briefly and earn himself what must have been a very painful wedgie. After some struggle, both of the robbers are chased away, leaving even their weapons behind. Worst mask ever. Now, you don't have to know much about robberies to realize that a mask is used to cover one's face and hide their identity. This guy seems to be trying to pull off a robbery of a smartphone store by using a see-through mask to cover his face. Well, the reason why the whole ordeal failed miserably was right there in the name of a see-through mask. An old-timer you shouldn't mess with. The robber whose failure was caught on this security camera probably thought that this would be a quick job. He saw what he thought would be an easy target, an old man pulling out money from an ATM, and went for it. He simply walked up to the old fella and pushed him, going straight for the money. Little did he know that this 77-year-old was about to throw some serious moves. Right from the beginning, we see that he adopts quite a firm boxing stance. This should have been a sign that things weren't going to be as easy as the robber thought, but he kept at it, eating a fistful of the old-timer's justice. Cops stop a cab robbery. The next video will show us the definition of what it means to pick the wrong place and the wrong time to attempt a robbery. Unfortunately for the cab driver that we see in this video, a masked and armed robber enters his car. He realizes that this may even be a prank, considering that his car is parked right in front of a police vehicle. The unlucky robber, however, doesn't seem to have noticed this, and he proceeds to take the money from the man, threatening him further to give up any valuables that he may have. He asks for the man's phone, and while all of this is happening, the cops in the back turn on the police lights and simply walk up to the man, arresting him on the spot. A desperate robber begs for help. This guy walked into a store with the clear aim of robbing it, but it didn't take long for the women working in this place to realize something was up. As soon as he walks behind the counter, they conclude that the man is up to no good, and they come up with a brilliant plan. After they escorted the lady who had a child with her out of the store, they closed the door, and considering that there were metal bars covering the whole entrance, the robber was locked in completely. However, it took him a while before he realized his predicament. In panic, he walks left and right across the store, looking for any way out or anything to break down the door with. But since he couldn't find anything, he even tried using a weapon on the lock. But this attempt fails, and he is clearly starting to sweat. Even though he manages to shatter the glass, the issue of metal bars that are essentially foreshadowing his near future in prison is still there. Realizing where he will be going, he resorts to begging the people in front to release him, but since no one in their right mind would do so, he is left with no choice but to wait for the cops to arrive and peacefully surrender to them. You are not robbing this guy. The guy that is standing next to his vehicle is holding a piece of equipment that we will soon see him use very effectively against a robber who shows up out of nowhere. The man walks up to the star of the show from behind, probably planning to rob him blind. Acting as if he is about to walk away, the robber pulls out the weapon and quickly threatens the man with it. However, this guy wasn't going to be the victim, and he used the tool that he had as a whip, striking the surprised robber to the ground. Store workers subdue armed robbers. As these perpetrators were trying to rob this store, they were met with quite a serious resistance that the workers of the shop have put up. It all started once one of the two suspicious-looking fellas pulled out a weapon and jumped over the counter, feeling that this threat was enough to put the clerks under control. Very soon, he finds out this isn't the case as he is thrown on the ground, and his neck is firmly squeezed by the forearm of one of the workers. The other guy attempts to help his fellow robber, but even as he points towards them, one of the men shows how unbelievably brave they are as he tries to grab his hand and the weapon that it holds. Robber not taken seriously. He enters the store, pretending to have a weapon hidden in the bag that's drawn over his arm. Even the first reaction that the people who were present had could have told him he wasn't going to get far with it. They seemed entirely unfazed, and one of them even kept munching on whatever she was having. Even the guy behind the register realizes that no one is taking this robber seriously. After another failed attempt to scare the women into giving him their money, the robber gets discouraged and leaves the store. Security guard prevents a robbery. A security guard in this store must have hoped to have just a regular day, but the robber that we saw entering wasn't going to let it be. After getting behind the security guard, he goes for the guy's weapon, trying to seize it and use it to rob the very store the man is tasked with protecting. While he was caught by surprise, he wasn't going to give in without a fight. He fights back and manages to push the robber out of the store, where they continue wrestling. From behind the camera, we see that a store worker has mustered his courage, and using a broomstick, he charges in as a proper Spartan. Tricked by a self-locking door, this robber thought that picking up a few phones and simply running away with them was the way to do it. However, since he didn't know the store had a safety measurement that included a self-locking door, he was left embarrassed by his attempt. Once he understood that he wasn't getting anywhere, he returned the phone to the owner. Being trapped in the store, he had no choice but to receive the lecture that he deserved. A robber gets tackled by 3 officers. These robbers believed that quite tall partitions in this store would provide them with enough cover to go about their robbery unnoticed. But they weren't prepared for what was about to follow. Since similar thieving has occurred multiple times, cops were ready and close to the scene, which is why these robbers ended up being arrested in a matter of minutes after they had stuffed their bags with products. Your luck has run out. This robber seems decisive in finding out how many times you can rob the same store before you get caught, since he has done so multiple times, and all the workers in the store have seen the footage and can easily recognize him. He must have thought that he had struck gold since, after multiple robberies, he experienced no consequences. But this wasn't going to be the case this time. After filling his bag with merchandise, the robber attempted to leave, but the clerk recognized him. Before he could escape, the clerk locked the door using a button below the counter. Surprised by what happened, he experiences a severe panic as we see him kicking, pushing, and pulling the door handle, trying to escape. Meanwhile, the worker called the police. After all his attempts to break the door failed, he decided to play this hilarious card. He returns all the goods that he just tried to steal and places them in the exact spot where they were. Then, he begs the worker to let him go. When he refuses, the guy keeps kicking until the glass breaks and he escapes. However, he was caught by the store owner soon after. If it wasn't clear to you from our list, being a robber doesn't seem like the best or safest idea. All the individuals in the videos we've seen repeatedly proved this by miserably failing when trying to rob different places and people. We hope you enjoyed all the videos we presented to you today. Thank you for watching,